Good morning.
Good morning.
You raised me up so I can stand on mountains. You raised me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I'm on your shoulders. You raised me up to be more than I can be. That's a great song. We appreciate it because it's good, like teaching. But when we really get to know something, experience its history, that's when we fully appreciate that. Teaching is that way too. Before I talk about teachers making a difference and becoming more than we thought we could be, I'm going to talk about this song. You Raise Me Up is an Irish song. The music was written in 2000 by Ralph Loveland. Moved by an Irish Christmas story, The Whitest Flower, about the Irish famine, Ralph called his author, Brendan Graham, to listen to his song. Graham heard the song over tea, told Ralph he'd call him. Later that evening, Graham came over with the first draft. Everyone cried. There was no rewrite. You Raised Me Up was first performed at Ralph's mother's funeral a few weeks after 9/11. The whole world needed a shoulder to stand on then. And teachers were there. Grit. True grit. A great movie, and some of us actually saw it while John Wayne was still alive. Not the husbands? Wayne got an Oscar for his performance, and not only is grit what this conference is about, it's what I'm going to talk about. Grit. Go the distance. Remember you were once a student. Invite others to be teachers. And tell your story. I'll need your help for that last one. Go the distance. I'm honored to be here, and I'm still here because God is not finished with me yet, and has a joke or two she wants me to hear. I'm old. I'm retired military. I can quit tomorrow. Don't worry, Dr. Wood, I'll be here on Monday. I hope. My point is, when people ask me about my greatest achievement, I have to pause. Not too long, because I'm old. But I've learned to say being married for over 33 years, regardless of my honey-do list, that will keep me busy for at least another decade, is one. Having a son who's teaching English in a public high school, another one who will be commissioned in May, are both things that make me proud. But my greatest achievement, I tell people I've not achieved. Richard Bach, author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, tells us, here's a test to see if your mission on earth is complete. If you're alive, then it isn't. I live to teach, and each day I find ways to go the distance. I encourage you to keep believing you can fulfill your dreams. Teachers make presidents, Nobel laureates, even Donald Trump's hairdresser. You don't get to the next level by stopping. Tiger Woods never won a PGA tournament without completing the 18th hole. You don't finish a marathon after 26 miles. There are 385 yards left. Going the distance is being persistent and teaching your students the same. Let me tell you what persistence got us. The first Harry Potter book was rejected 12 times. The Diary of Anne Frank was rejected 15 times. Lord of the Flies by William Golden once received a rejection letter that read, an absurd and uninteresting fantasy which was rubbish and dull. Include Margaret Mitchell, 38 no's. But the classic, I think, are the 60 rejection letters Catherine Stockett received. There was 5 years of writing, which included 3.5 years of rejection letters before someone saw her genius. The point, she says, I can't tell you how to succeed, but I can tell you how not to. If you put your passion in a coffin that is your bedside drawer and close it for good, I guarantee you it won't take you anywhere. The message here, if you stop improving your game stops improving. Can't make the basket if you don't shoot the ball. Can't make a difference. Can't stand on the sideline and make a difference. You get the message? Go the distance. That's why you can read Stockard's The Help. And as you go the distance, remember you were once a student. I think sometimes we forget that. I do, until I hear myself. Like sometimes, for those of you who are parents, we hear our parents' words come out of our mouths. It's like for a moment, we've been possessed. Did I say that? Trust yourself and your students. Tell them the truth. Sometimes you can be the difference between jail and justice, prison and possibilities. Some of you are the first person many have seen of someone who looks like them who has succeeded. Don't take that responsibility lightly. Remember Spider-Man? His uncle tells him, with great power comes great responsibility. As a teacher, don't ever undervalue yourself as you remember which teacher made a difference in your life. Remembering you were once a student goes a long way. As my cousin once said, you don't have to remember the truth. She's a teacher, by the way. Don't lie. Be honest. Remember you were once a student. Have fun. Then invite people you know who should be teachers to join you. That's my third point. I'm so happy to have the school districts join us. I think I always knew I was going to be a teacher, especially for someone who liked to talk, which I did. If Richmond had been around, I would have been a prime candidate. No, I take that back. We had Richmond. It was called a paddle. Want to get me to shut up? Wave a paddle. But my point is, we want good people to teach. This is not an invitation to a misery loves company or come to my pity party. It's a reality. Teaching is awesome, but it's not for everyone. There's no greater calling than helping your students know that they are diamonds and appreciate the value of your polishing or paddling. I wouldn't do anything else. There are so many stories. Like one student I had last semester whose dad had kicked him out of the house. The student had no way to get to school, so he missed my class. When he returned, I literally marched him to my office, sat him across from me, and I listened. He'd hurt his dad. He knew it, but didn't know how to fix it. These are the times when, like Dr. Yeomans, another mentor, told me, you realize whatever you are able to bring to your students pales significantly when contrasted with what your students bring to you. I told my student, dads who care don't give up. And if he thought his dad still cared, to write a letter to his dad and say how he felt. He loved his dad. Knew he had disappointed him. I know students don't do optional, so I told the student if he wanted my help, he needed to go the distance. He did. His dad was touched. His dad was sorry and told him to come home. This semester, after telling my class I was ADHD, seeing me in action, they probably thought, oh, so that's what it is. Anyway, a student came up to me at the end of class and said, thanks, I am too. Then he asked me if I had any ideas on how to help him. Does this sound like misery? Invite someone to be a teacher. After we go the distance, remember what it was like to be a student, invite someone to be a teacher, you now need to tell your story. In teaching, you can't separate this from who you are. My students can tell you a lot of things about me, and one of the things they will tell you, I love what I do. As Jack Houston once told me, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Now the story. I would like you to close your eyes. We're not in church, so I really want you to close your eyes. Think of the teacher who made a difference, was literally the teacher who changed your life, went the distance with you, and made you think you could do anything. Now that you can see the teacher who is principally responsible for you being here, open your eyes. Tell the person next to you who that was and what they taught. Go ahead. Okay. Good. Now. Hello. Now, but that's the teacher I want you to think about when I tell you the story, I promise. And my story, her name is Mrs. Yarborough. As Mrs. Yarborough stood in front of our 5th grade class on the very first day of school, she told the children a lie. Like most teachers, she looked at her students and said that she loved them all the same. But that was impossible, because there in the front row, slumped in his seat, was a little boy named Teddy Armstrong. Mrs. Yarborough had watched Teddy the year before and noticed that he didn't play well with other children. His clothes were messy and he constantly needed a bath. And Teddy could be unpleasant. It got to the point where Mrs. Yarborough would actually take delight in marking his papers with a broad red pen, making bold X's, and then putting a big F at the top of his papers. At the school where Mrs. Yarborough taught, she was required to read and review each child's past records, and she put Teddy's off until last. However, when she reviewed his file, she was in for a surprise. Teddy's 1st grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is a bright child with a ready laugh. He does his work neatly and has good manners. He is a joy to be around." His 2nd grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is an excellent student, well liked by his classmates, but he is troubled because his mother has a terminal illness, and life at home must be a struggle." His 3rd grade teacher wrote, "His mother's death has been hard on him. He tries to do his best, but his father doesn't show much interest, and his home life will soon affect him if some steps aren't taken." Teddy's 4th grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is withdrawn and doesn't show much interest in school. He doesn't have many friends, and he sometimes sleeps in class." By now, Mrs. Yarborough realized the problem, and she was ashamed of herself. She felt even worse when her students brought her Christmas presents wrapped in beautiful ribbons and bright paper, except for Teddy's. His present was clumsily wrapped in a heavy brown paper that he got from a grocery bag. Mrs. Yarborough took pains to open it in the middle of other presents. Some of the children started to laugh when she found a rhinestone bracelet with some of the stones missing, and a bottle that was 1/4 full of perfume. But she stifled the children's laughter when she exclaimed how pretty the bracelet was, putting it on and dabbing some of the perfume on her wrist. Teddy stayed after school that day, just long enough to say, "Mrs. Yarborough, today you smell just like my mother used to." After the children left, she cried for at least an hour. On that very day, she quit teaching, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Instead, she began to teach children. As she worked with him, his mind seemed to come alive, as she paid particular attention to Teddy. The more she encouraged him, the faster he responded. By the end of the year, Teddy had become one of the smartest children in the class. And despite the lie that she would love all the children the same, Teddy became one of her teacher's pets. A year later, she found a note under her door from Teddy telling her that she was still the best teacher he ever had in his whole life. 6 years went by before she got another note from Teddy. He then wrote that he had finished high school, third in his class, and she was still the best teacher he ever had in his whole life. 4 years later, she got another note saying that while things had been tough at times, he stayed in school, had stuck with it, and would soon graduate from college with the highest of honors. He assured Mrs. Yarborough that she was still the best and favorite teacher he ever had in his whole life. Then 4 more years passed, and yet another letter came. This time he explained that after he got his bachelor's degree, he decided to go a little further. The letter explained that she was still the best and favorite teacher he ever had. But now his name was a little longer. The letter was signed Theodore F. Armstrong, M.D. The story doesn't end there. You see, there was yet another letter that spring. Teddy said he'd met this girl and was going to be married. He explained that his father had died a couple of years ago, and he was wondering if Mrs. Yarborough might agree to sit in the place at the wedding that was usually reserved for the mother of the groom. Of course, Mrs. Yarborough said yes. And guess what? She wore that bracelet, the one with several rhinestones missing. And she made sure she was wearing the perfume that Teddy remembered his mother wearing on their last Christmas together. They hugged each other. And Dr. Armstrong whispered in Mrs. Yarborough's ear, "Thank you, Mrs. Yarborough, for believing in me. Thank you so much for making me feel important and showing me that I could make a difference." Mrs. Yarborough, with tears in her eyes, whispered back. She said, "Teddy, you have it all wrong. You are the one who taught me that I can make a difference. I didn't know how to teach until I met you. You are teachers. Remember that. Remember, no matter where you go, what you do, you will have the opportunity to touch and change a person's outlook. Teachers have an obligation, our own Hippocratic oath, to save lives in a way only teachers like you and Mrs. Yarborough can. And we do that by having grit. Go the distance. Remember what it was like to be a student. Invite others to be teachers and telling our story. The world is our classroom. We, you and I, change lives every day. There is a Mrs. Yarborough in all of us. Don't forget that, or I'll paddle you. Thank you, Dr. Husband. I thank my Mrs. Yarborough, and thank you all for listening. And Dr. Wood, and Dr. Cottrell, I do plan on being here on Monday. Thank you.